Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am O'Brien McMahon, and this is People Business. In this episode, I am joined by Neal Foard, the founder and principal at StoryFire. Neal has spent more than 25 years in advertising and marketing, creating award-winning campaigns for global power brands like Budweiser, Lexus, Nokia, and many, many more. For his work on Toyota, Neal ranked among the top 10 most awarded creative directors in the world. As the author of an innovative talent development series, Neal was named Worldwide Director of Creative Learning for global ad agency Saatchi & Saatchi. He has consulted on creative messaging for Fortune 500 companies, universities, governments. He's been featured on the TEDx conference stage. And most recently, Neal has gained a following on social media for his inspirational videos about kindness of everyday people. And that is how I found Neal. I started watching his videos, which we talk about a little bit and we'll link to in the show notes. And I finally just reached out and was like, I want to talk to this guy. He's so compelling as a storyteller. I really wanted to pick apart how he does what he does. And anyone who's listened to this show for any amount of time knows that I'm a big fan of storytelling. I'm a big believer in the power of words and that words matter, and the imagery that we convey and the feelings that we elicit in other people are what move people and help us be successful and move through the world in a successful way. And we unpack all of that in this conversation. And Neal makes a really compelling argument for why or how somebody can improve their standing among their peer group by being good at standing and delivering stories. I hope you like this. If you are at all thoughtful as you go through this, there are a ton of takeaways in here for you to apply to your everyday life, to your everyday work, no matter what that role is. I'm a nerd for storytelling and very excited to share this one with you. Here is Neal Foard. Neal, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, because we've actually tried this once. This is round 2, and it's going to be even better than our first attempt.
I hope so. Although our first attempt was pretty good.
It was going well. The internet did not cooperate.
Yeah, that was just ladies and gentlemen of the audience, for your benefit, this is not O'Brien's doing. It's strictly my problem, but we seem to have gotten it resolved. Let's hope so.
Yeah, we'll knock on everything.
And thank you for having me back.
No, excited to have you. I was thrilled to have you in the first place because I'm a big fan of your content. I don't know where I saw it in the first place, but it popped up not on TikTok, but on LinkedIn. And I don't know, something about you and the black background and storytelling suckered me in. And I started to watch, and I have laughed out loud at your videos. I have changed my mind because of some of your videos, and I have cried because of some of your videos. And so I think that's the trifecta. I was like, all right, I'm just going to reach out to this guy, see if he wants to come on the show.
Well, that's good. Mission accomplished then.
Yeah. Can you explain what those videos are, how they came to be, what you do with them?
My daughter describes them as emotional pop songs. The impetus for the whole thing, just essentially they're like 2-minute little meditations on generally positivity. And the idea behind it is, hey, on LinkedIn, I'm a little tired of watching people congratulate themselves, humble brag, sell stuff, and they'll give you a hot take on something that's just been worked to death, or they've had ChatGPT work up some kind of content, or they've done a white paper that they didn't write. And they're just trying to stay current. It's a networking platform, so I get it. You're trying to get yourself out there. You're trying to establish a brand. So I thought, I'm really tired of seeing this kind of stuff. I want to be a kind of an example I want to be the best part of people's day, if I can be. Essentially, it was like, here's my central thesis. Human beings are not as bad as we're being told. We are most of the time pretty cool. And all of this putting stupid people in front of us and making idiots famous, and what's more, like just celebrating fame for fame's sake. I wanted to say, no, you know what? People are actually really super creative. They're friendly. They're accommodating. They're generous. They're sweet-natured. Yes, there's a dark side. Absolutely. But we've made progress. Yeah. And we're continuing to make progress. So let me just be that part of the day that tries to reassure you a little bit based on my own personal history that, you know what, maybe we might make it after all.
And so, what is your background? Just like, how did you get so good at telling stories?
Thank you for saying that. I came from 30 years in advertising and marketing. And the reason I have any skill at this is that I had to literally do thousands of presentations in business meetings, board meetings, in front of audiences, and so on. When I was in the creative side of advertising, so I was the person, generally speaking, who was responsible for explaining an idea to a client. Now, there's all kinds of different specialties in advertising: copywriters, art directors, creative directors. And there's a phenomenon that you've often heard described as the cobbler's children have no shoes. And what it amounts to is that in the world of advertising, you take creative people whose profession is to come up with clever ways to present information. And yet, when it's time to present their own work, they think that it's going to sell on its own merits. This is such a brilliant idea, they'll see it immediately. No, people are terrible at recognizing a good idea when it's described to them. They're really bad. Like, they can read a movie script and not know if it's going to be a hit. Like that's just the fact. So you have to sell it to people. You have to make it fun. And we used to go back to my earlier theme. We wanted to be the best part of people's day. When they showed up or when we went to their office to present them with creative options, we wanted them to have so much fun that even if they didn't approve our recommendation, they'll feel like they owed us one, like that we'll get it back in the future. And in other words, it was just showmanship. And after thousands of presentations, I started to recognize a truism, which was, wow, storytelling is the default operating system of the human race. Like, our species, from hundreds of thousands of years around the campfire, cooking up the meat from the bison, we tell each other stories, we gossip, we explain, through stories. Think about, like, all religions have a series of parables that explain things. It's not PowerPoint with bullet points. You'll often hear these stories of the Zen master meets do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or Jesus talks about the Good Samaritan. Or when you look back at the mythologies of the centaur and so forth, David
Aesop's
and Goliath.
fables. I grew up Aesop's fables.
Fables are a really good example because at the end of Aesop's fables, there's usually a moral.
Yeah.
And it's a marvelous way to lead someone to a sale, to say, and that is why we are recommending campaign 2. That's the punchline, is that you'll see the merits of what I'm talking about. That was from experience. It's like, wow, they really get it when you tell it in the form of a story. And so I started to keep a notebook. And now I have shelves of these, of things that happened to me that make interesting stories. I'll give you an example. I haven't worked it into a story yet, but let me just tell you what happened to me. It found its way into my book, and it was this. I went to the NSA annual conference in Scottsdale, Arizona. NSA stands for National Speakers Association. So these are professional speakers. And it was 1,000 of them in the same place. Now, I went there to pick up a number of tips and tricks and recommendations on ways that I could increase the number of speaking engagements that I do, only to discover it was 1,000 extroverts in one place. Now, that might sound like a bad thing to you, but it was amazing because nobody was walking down the hallway, eyes on their phone. Everybody was eyes up. Everybody was game for a conversation. Every time I got on an elevator, somebody started a conversation. And here's what I didn't know, but discovered after 3 days. The first thing I discovered was, this is really pleasant when everybody's game for a conversation. Oh my God, this is fantastic. But when I left, I was the one starting the conversations on the elevator. I was the one talking to the gal at the 7-Eleven or the guy in the valet parking. I'd been infected with this gregarious desire to find out about people. Now, I don't know how that's going to be a story yet, but oh my Lord, O'Brien, it was the most reassuring fuel up of wow. If I was depressed, I would go to the next NSA conference.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
let's
Sorry.
take that story then, because this is great.
Yeah.
And it was going to go where I wanted to go when you mentioned the notebook anyway. Because my one question was, how do you capture these stories? But you already answered that in a notebook. So you have that realization. You're like, oh, great. This is a realization. I'm going to write about this weekend that I had here.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
write that in a notebook. And then what?
And then I have to work to a structure. And the structure is I'm only telling you this story because I have some conclusion I would like you to walk away with. Now, as we're sitting here and talking about it, I'm thinking, you know, what's kind of a neat conclusion is the fact that quality is infectious. That if you expose yourself to that kind of positivity and openness and friendliness and generosity, it turns you into that person. And I really would like to leave that as an impression with people. So no doubt, O'Brien, you will see this as a post soon on LinkedIn. There was another thing about it that I might draw as a conclusion, which is it wasn't what I walked in as what I was hoping for. Like my expectations and my goals did not match what the best takeaway was. And I crazy as it seems, 30 years experience, and I'm a better salesperson now after that event than I walked in because it created in me a kind of addiction to finding out people's stories and just knowing the experience I had. So every lunch that they did at that event was, oh, there ain't no way there's assigned seating. You have to find strangers and sit among them. So naturally, since that's the remit for everybody, that's our assignment. Nobody says no when you say, do you mind if I sit here? By all means, tell me your life story because it's a giant networking event. It's a giant event where everybody gets to meet everybody. What's your specialty? What are you working on? And you just learn a million things at a lunch where the only rules are sit down with strangers and you walk away. The number of times I sat at that lunch table past the meal, 2.5 hours. I'm supposed to be in a clinic right now, but instead I'm learning from this gal who makes her living as a musician. And I want to hear all about the music business and I want to hear how hard it is or what she succeeded at. I don't know how I'm going to use this information, but I do know that I'm enriched and I feel, and I made a friend and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I am going to hang on to this. The fact that if you just make a little bit of an effort, you'd be shocked. I know people say, no, by all means, I'll be happy to talk about myself for 20 minutes. Why was that such a revelation? It shouldn't have been. I should have known that. But
yeah, there are a lot of things that are revelations that were things we should have known. That's what a revelation is, us realizing the thing we knew all along.
What? Yeah.
So, okay. So you get the story, you write it down. You have then your takeaways. Here are the possible things that I could take from this. Are you, when you're doing that, are you like, oh, I'm a storyteller, and so I need stories that model storytelling? Or are you just like, I don't care what the lesson is here. That was an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to record interesting things. Okay.
It's that. It's all because it's all on strategy. It's all on brand, which is you go to LinkedIn, you see my face. I'm going to try and improve your day. And sometimes it's just little interesting factoids.
Yeah.
Like, get a load of this. Okay. I came across these and I just thought it was fantastic. Coca-Cola, I think, was invented around 1880. The Eiffel Tower was built in about 1886 or something like that. And then Count Dracula, that book was written in about 1875. Oh, and no, and then it was Nintendo was a playing card company in 1855, something. So technically speaking, Dracula could have been drinking a Coke while playing Nintendo. Okay, now that's a ridiculous piece of trivia, these little things.
Yeah.
But because I smiled so much and laughed at that, I thought that's a gift to the internet for me to put that on LinkedIn. Because, okay, you won Flange Maker of the Year, and I see another post from this woman's got a new job at NEC. Great. But if you see my face, I want you to walk away smiling.
Yeah.
And so guess what? It turns out it's incredibly useful for any kind of salesperson to have these little amusing anecdotes, factoids, and things at their elbow, because not every business meeting is just let's get to it.
Yeah.
There's usually some kind of interesting thing, or people are talking about their children, or they're talking about summer camp, or they're sharing the human side of their business for a very good reason, which is the smartest business is done in a relationship of trust. I lived for 2 years in Hong Kong. I was shocked by this discovery that on the mainland, I was there in 98 to 2000. So this was right after the British handover of Hong Kong to the PRC. And in China, they almost never got lawyers involved with a contract. Let me rephrase that. It's not that they never did. It's just, it wasn't how business was done. Business was done from long relationships involving trust. And you wouldn't force the issue on every little thing, because to do so is to be kind of a douche. And instead, what they did was they said, I trust you, you trust me, we're in this for 3 generations. Therefore, I'm not going to do anything that's going to ruin it for my grandchildren. Like, that would be so dumb for both of us to do that. And in doing so, we have made our business incredibly efficient. We have greased this thing to ignore small things and keep focused on the prize, which is a long-standing understanding and relationship where the two of us will thrive for generations. Now, how does a story factor into that? Anything that can help someone understand who you are as a human being, anything that helps you see somebody else as a human being, it's that same grease. It's that same lubricant of trust. And when you're dealing with another human being, you tend to overlook bullshit. No?
Yeah.
You tend not to get caught up.
Well, it's the benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's that, like, somebody else might see that and be like, whoa, that's a red flag. And you're like, it's not a red flag. We're fine.
I can't believe he did that. No, you don't know. I know Ron. Relax.
Yeah.
Either he misspoke or you didn't hear it. Take it easy. Yeah, it's a lot like that. So human beings, human stories, they humanize you. And the operating system of human beings is that stories are a lot more memorable than facts. And they contain within them an emotional component that makes them not only believable, but they resonate. It's no accident that they use, does that resonate with you, that they would use a word like that, because a resonation is vibration.
Yeah.
And when you're vibrating with somebody on the same frequency, there's not just understanding, there's an emotional level of trust.
There's a great example that happened this morning when I was talking to my wife, because I mentioned that you were coming on the show. And I was like, yeah, do you remember I found the guy on LinkedIn and I had watched his videos and the whole thing. And I was describing who you were. And then she goes, oh, the Gen Z guy? And I was like,
so she saw
yes,
that. Yeah.
Because I showed her your video about the Gen Z couple who for their first
it's
date
a real story.
went
really
to,
happened.
So I won't spoil it, but we'll put it in the show notes. It's a Gen Z couple on their first date. They go to a couples therapist and try to convince the person that they've been together for 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
It is an amazing, amazing story. But that was what she remembered. She didn't remember me talking about you. She remembered the story you told.
Yeah. Well, there you go. See? That's it in a nutshell. To go back to Aesop's fables, I doubt anybody in your audience has heard any of those Aesop's fables in 15 years.
Yeah.
And yet they could probably repeat with a fair degree of accuracy about 5 of them.
Yeah.
Tortoise and the hare and so on. And that's the beauty of the structure. The Aesop's fable has memorable characters doing something that leads to a moral, and that by telling it, it has seeded the human operating system. This sort of memory trigger is narration, it's narrative. And when you are trying to communicate any piece of information, what's really incredibly useful is, if you want to be remembered, tell it in the form of a story. Let's say you've got any product at all. The story about the product is not the product. The story is about a person suffering for want of the product. They're experiencing some kind of challenge. They can't get what they want because they don't have a solution to this problem. Along comes the product. Turns out the product is the solution to your problem. Okay, now Act 2 is explaining how the product works and what it does. But then Act 3 is, And now what is this character experiencing?
The results of the product.
As a result of the product. So it's a very simple model, but it means in order to sell you the product, I have to introduce you to a sympathetic protagonist. It's a lot more fun when it's about somebody who was really struggling. It can be like somebody's struggling with migraine headaches, or somebody just can't get admission to a certain college, or they can't afford something, but with this now they can. You get the idea. It's simple, but people often, and this used to happen in advertising, people just think these things sell on their own merits. They don't sell on their own merits. You have to explain it to people using a system that their physiology is designed to absorb. Look, if they all speak French and those are your customers, learn to speak French, baby. Because that's the language that they're going to use. And what I discovered from years and years of telling stories in order to try to get clients to buy certain ideas is, oh, life gets so much easier when they like you, like when they want you to win.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that the stories you tell are uplifting, or they contain some element of hope. And that by telling it, I have improved your day. I can't stress enough how much fun it was for us to say as our goal at the beginning of the day is, okay, these people are going to come over and they're going to watch our presentation. And then they're either going to approve or not approve. They're going to give us a green light or they're not. But no matter what happens, your goal should be, this is the best part of their day. When they came over here, they think, oh, we should do it on a Friday at 2 because it's going to rock. We're all going to have a good time. And then it's time for drinks. It's Friday afternoon. Let's do it at 2. We'll be out of there by 4. We're going to go have drinks downstairs. And it just made it so that people, when they like you, they're inclined to buy.
Yeah.
And even if they don't, you haven't spoiled anything. I'll lose a little money to make a friend. And there's another thing too, which, to go back to the memory thing, when you are telling a story and you supply them with a moral, you give them a kind of, this is the point. It gives them the talking point for justifying their decision. Like a story is easy to repeat.
Yeah.
And a metaphor, a simile for, Jerry, why did you spend all this money on that refrigeration unit? Ron, I want you to picture, and then you tell them the story. Like, they can do it. You've equipped them to carry the sale up the pecking order.
Yeah. The metaphorical story that makes your point. So just to pause on this for a second, because I think it's easier to think about this in sales or an advertising pitch, where you walk in the room and you're trying to win friends and get them to buy something from you. But there are plenty of other interactions that happen in day-to-day work where you're not a salesperson, but you are trying to convince somebody internally to do something, or you're trying to collaborate together and you're trying to create alignment on your team. How do you teach people to take these skills and use them in more of the sort of everyday internal conversations that they're having?
Yes, man, I've got so many examples of what you're talking about. It's not just about sales, but although, to be fair, everybody's selling all the time.
That's the trick, right? It's not about sales, but it is because everybody's selling all the time.
Right. Yeah. Cooperation, persuasion is the most powerful superpower ever existing. Because if you can persuade people to change their minds, you have just unlocked the greatest of all unlocks. You can fly anywhere, date anyone, get anybody. Yeah. Imagine what your sales commissions would be like if you had the magic power to change people's minds. But let's talk about specific cases inside the building. Usually there's a sales arm, but there's also the sort of technical arm of things. Like there's a financial analyst, or there is a pharmacist, or there's a biochemist, or the programmers. And these people are often incredibly useful to have in business meetings when making decisions. Particularly, let's say, for example, that you are a big investment firm, or maybe you're private equity or something, but you have as your principal client ultra high net worth individuals, or you've got like a trust. Like it's so much generational wealth, there's a board and you've got to convince them to make certain kinds of investments. They don't want to hear from the salesperson. They want to hear from the market analyst. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, The market analysts, the quant guys, they don't have any interest in talking to you. That's not their specialty. They're not gregarious, outgoing salespeople. They like the numbers, and that's what makes them good. But it's so useful to have them in the meeting. How do you coach these people up? It has been my experience that when you can provide them with the first 60 seconds of what they say, or even the first 30 seconds, it establishes their credibility. It makes them seem, oh, they're very thoughtful. When I turned to them for advice, they had that first 60 seconds down. And so they spoke with confidence and they didn't delay. And it was nice and tight. It wasn't a rambling explanation about how the markets work. It was just a very simple metaphor for, we believe, oh my God, one of the smartest finance guys I ever heard was a quantitative analysis guy who said this. He said, Mrs. Hotchingard, I want to make it so you never have to earn your fortune twice. Okay. I'm not in the wealth acquisition business. I'm in the wealth preservation business. Therefore, I'm making the decisions on the following inputs. Okay. Now, this guy was on the spectrum, but he had his script. And by knowing the script, it filled him with confidence that he was doing what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's the truth in any business. It's like when there is an important decision to be made, get ready for it. Have your explanation practiced. Because when a biochemist can nail that first minute, everything else she says after that is gold.
Yeah.
Because your first impression is, oh, this is a highly prepared, very quick person who understands how I need to have it phrased. Did you ever see, like, they'll do this movie like The Big Short or whatever, and they'll often have these people explaining, like, what a CDO is and so forth. Like, literally, have to
like a cutaway. Somebody's looking at the camera, breaking the fourth wall, explaining what it is. Yeah.
Right. It was brilliant that they did it that way. It really helps when you can get somebody to be ready like that, to explain a term or to say, this is an innovation that requires a little bit of explanation. The metaphor would be like, especially the Anthony Bourdain version of that, where he was explaining how they were repackaging bad real estate investments by putting them into a fish stew.
Yes.
Like he says, you're a chef. You got this 3-day-old fish. You can't very much serve it because they'll smell it coming. But what you can do is you can repackage it with other fish you're trying to get rid of. And all of a sudden, it's not bad fish. It's fish stew. And you go, got it. Not only do I understand it, but I understand it emotionally, which is, oh my God, they're selling me 3-day-old fish and acting like it's intentional.
Yep.
You can see the power of that. And that was Bourdain, of course. Are you kidding me? Was there ever anybody that was so good on camera, so good at being himself? Such a tragedy, that guy died.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And that's the power of metaphor itself, right? Because you don't have to tell, and I've hit storytelling on this podcast before, and one of the things that has come up is you don't have to tell an entire story in order to move somebody. You can use elements of story. And so like imagery and metaphor can be very powerful.
Yeah.
They don't have to be part of a hero's journey necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. And anytime you can illustrate something with an insightful or counterintuitive illustration, it's so great. But to go back to the storytelling and why it sometimes works so well, when people care about a character, they're intensely paying attention. When they care what happens to someone, or they're rooting for someone, or by contrast, they hate a character so much. Like, you've heard this phrase, you hate them so much, you love how much you hate them. Okay, you take the movie Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs, great film. The star is supposed to be Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster. She's ostensibly the center of the action. We start on her, we end on her. But every scene Hannibal Lecter is in, he steals.
Yeah.
Because he is just so compelling.
Yeah.
And so he's a cannibal. And we are rooting for him.
Think the Joker in The Dark Knight, right? Heath Ledger.
Great
we
example.
love Heath Ledger because he was so terrible in that role. He was so good at being bad.
He's magnificently compelling.
Yeah.
Sometimes evil is that way. And I heard a young woman explain to me how to get out of bed in the morning faster and how to hit the ground running on your to-do list better. And she says, I want you to think of yourself as your evil self, your evil villain self. Do you really think the evil villain sleeps in? Or does the evil mastermind who is grinding his axe to have his revenge on the world, he's the one who is turning the alarm clock off before it has had a chance to sound? The evil antagonist, he's in the gym. He's broken in to use it earlier than it was. And I thought, what a wonderful way of putting that so that it provides you with a sort of gasoline. Who would have thought that would be a motivating force? To think of yourself as the evil villain of the story.
So you said come up with things that are counterintuitive. That's a great one. For people who don't have this skill set, what are some brainstorming exercises that they can do to start to come up with some of this stuff? Because you might sit there and just be like, I don't know, I'm not that creative. I want to tell these stories, but I don't have 1,000 of these. Like we could start going forward, writing more stories down, but do you have anything that would help them in the moment? Like, okay, I have this problem. I'm trying to communicate this thing. Where do I start?
Yeah, we are blessed these days with AI, things like Perplexity and ChatGPT and so on, where you can actually say, I'm looking for a story that will illustrate this point, and it will often come back with something very serviceable. And so that's a terrific tool that you can use. I confess, I've tried it a few times, but I like to pull things from my own life because you knew what it smelled like and you knew which way the doors opened and you knew, and the other, the crazy looks that you got from somebody or the epilogue. Generally speaking, when you're pulling something off of the web, it doesn't have that extra cool epilogue. Oh, and you do realize that this happened afterwards. Yeah. And
it's like anything. The more work you put into something, the more it's going to resonate with other people.
Which,
yeah.
Here's something that people don't appreciate and have enough respect for. It takes some effort to get a story down to where you can say it cleverly and concisely. One of the things that will kill a story is bad timing. And timing is often because you're rambling because you haven't rehearsed it enough times to know how to say it. And in your ill preparation, you're sending signals you may not be aware. There's an old saw, which is how you do anything is how you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
When a young man shows up for a date and he's very well groomed and he's very nicely dressed, she's going to assume that his life is in order, that this is a guy who knows how to take care of himself. She has no right to draw that conclusion because they are mutually exclusive, but you're sending signals when you tell a story. If it's tight and orderly and you said it concisely and with confidence, it says, this is a highly intelligent person who is an excellent communicator and who had just the right story to tell at this moment. Therefore, they must have a million stories to tell. And let's say, for example, that you're in a gathering where people are, you know that they often will tell jokes. Baby, you better show up with a couple in your pocket. Don't get caught out hemming and hawing, and make sure they're good ones. And let's say, for example, okay, you know that the boss likes karaoke. Are you just going to roll into that unprepared and pick the first thing? Or are you going to get ready? You're going to have your number. You're going to have rehearsed it, right? Because how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. The one thing was I like to, for somebody who's unpracticed, it's like you can pull stories that are good illustrations of business points that you want to make if you use one of the Gemini or something to do a little research.
Yeah.
But then, and this, the reason I was interrupting you just now is because I wanted to make this point. People don't realize how much preparation it takes. And for example, when I'm doing one of my 2-minute videos, it takes me 31, 32 takes to get it. But the benefit of doing it that many times is I've worked it out. By take 32, it sounds good.
Yeah.
It sounds the way I want it to sound. So now I'm not fighting over the words anymore. And now I know exactly where to put that pause. And there is a kind of beauty to the fact that most of my videos are one take, end to end, right? They're not, I didn't have to do a lot of cuts because I wanted to look like it was one throw. It was a seamless, perfect delivery. And even though you're not going to sit there and meditate on, wow, he said that perfectly, the walkaway impression is, wow, he's a great storyteller. Yeah, give me enough tries at it.
Yeah.
Give me enough swings at the plate. Yeah, I'll hit it out.
What's all those trick shot videos when you actually watch behind the scenes? Like I watched one the other day.
That's it, exactly.
And this guy was trying to throw a paper airplane through something that was only as big as the paper airplane. It took him 437 tries to get it through the thing. And when he did, he was just as shocked as everybody else. But it's just that like that person is willing to sit there and throw it 437 times.
Yeah.
And I think like we often underestimate that, or we go to do something and we're like, oh, I stink at this. That didn't go well. I'm blowing it. And so I'm just like not good at this. And I think the successful people are the ones who are like not much better, but they're just willing to sit in it over and over again.
So let's talk about that. This is not an insignificant point that you're bringing up. The ones that are willing to do it. Okay, so 2 points about it. If you want to be good at something, you've got to be bad at it for a long time. It's ice skating, tennis, golf.
Yeah.
Take your pick, baby.
It's just like
Accounting.
The crummiest part of reality is like when you realize that and you're like, oh, bummer.
But what it does is it separates the professionals from the amateurs.
100%.
So if you're willing to wade in and be bad until you get good, you're going to be ahead of 90% of the rest of the species. Now, the second thing is there is a great phrase, which is you will never outwork somebody who's having fun. And so
like
what
that.
I'm right, because you have reservoirs of stamina for this activity.
Yeah.
And I have gotten to the phase now where I actually enjoy, is this going to be the take? Am I going to get it on this one? Ooh, I really like this thing that I did there. Let me see if I can get that back. And so now when I'm on take 22 and I still don't have it, I am not stressing at all. I know I'll get it. There's even a sort of perverse pride on getting it in take 45.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you take any stand-up comedian that is a real headliner and you think they're just making it up. Do you seriously think Kevin Hart in front of 60,000 people is just making it up as he goes? Brother, that guy's a workaholic. He has, and it's because he likes it, because he's good at it, because he gets better at it. And the real pros are like that. Wayne Gretzky, he said that guy was a fanatic for practice, like he enjoyed what other people found a chore. You can get there with enough satisfaction over your improvement. For example, you show me a guy who's starting to show his tricep at the gym, like all of a sudden he looks in the mirror, he goes, oh my God, I've got a tricep. That guy's going to be at the gym the next day at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because he's starting to see results. He's like, oh, it's on now.
Yeah.
That's the same way with when you are determined to go into a business meeting and leave them with a certain impression, or you are trying to persuade your team to do something and you've got just the right illustration because you came prepared. Bosses notice that stuff. Like they know. Really good case of, there was a young woman who was on a team I was on, and she was fantastic. She was a brilliant creative person, but she was not comfortable in front of big audiences. So we coached her up and she really showed out. Like, that was really good. And the bosses had no idea who she was before the meeting. They have no idea who this is that they're sharing the stage with. It's like in stand-up and you're number 3 and 10.
Yeah.
But the pros are all in the wings, the headliners in the wings watching as the talent comes up, and number 3 is, who the fuck was that?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, they're pushing her in front of a lot of other meetings, and now she's hanging out with those guys. The guys whose attention you want was the ones she was getting because she was prepared to get ready. She was prepared to, when it was game time. And then, of course, what happens is your nerves evaporate because instead of going, I'm nervous, now you're going, let's go. Come on.
I'm in the game.
Keep it moving. Let's move it. I'm up next.
Yeah.
And that is a very different kind of nerves.
Yeah. It's funny, when I speak, I find that still there's that little tingling nerves before I go on, even though I've done it a bunch now. But then as soon as I open my mouth, it's like I'm in a high school hockey or lacrosse game, which are the two sports.
Yeah, you're
right. Like,
now you're home.
Like I'm in the game and I'm like, okay, now we're playing. Now I'm in it. Now we're reacting.
It's a very different emotional state.
Yeah.
And there's a level of relaxation, by the way, that comes with when I'm saying you have to get ready and you have to prepare and you've got to practically memorize something, or if you have to commit it to such memory that you can recall it on a moment's notice, that's what getting ready is to be. You've preloaded a bullet.
Yeah.
When you are confident enough that you can either pull it out or not pull it out, you become attuned to the audience. You start noticing micro expressions. And what is the mood of this room? Who's really good at that is Bill Burr. Bill Burr, the stand-up comedian, he reads the room like a sonar. He is tuned to how it's going down. And he's fully ready for he's like a quarterback that has check down receivers.
Yeah.
He can adapt to whatever's happening in that room.
Yeah.
Johnny Carson, one time host of The Tonight Show, used to have a magnificent skill. It was almost funnier when a joke of his would go flat because he was so good at playing the fact that the joke bombed.
Yeah.
And so that he turned that into a strength. What a crazy place to be where your worst nightmare just came through. Oh, good.
Yeah. Or you have Matt Rife, the comedian, who just released a special last year that's all crowd work. It's all thinking on his feet.
Just all crowd work. He's ready. He's totally ready. He's got every play pre-designed like a set piece in soccer.
Yeah. There's a great, I think it was New York Times. We'll try to find it and put it in the show notes online, where they went through one of, I think her name's Taylor Tomlinson. She's fantastic.
She's so good.
It went through one of her jokes from her most recent stand-up special, and it showed clips as you were scrolling through the article on what the joke started as and how it evolved and how she flipped words or really manipulated it. And I think it makes the point that you're making, which is this stuff takes effort. And the people who get ahead are the ones that really put in the effort. When everybody else goes, oh my God, I'm like, I just want to be done with this. They're like, oh, we haven't even started yet. We're going
to return to what separates the greats from the rest of the civilians is that the greats enjoy the process. Yeah. They like refining it. They like learning it again and again. They get addicted the same way that people that play video games get addicted. They get addicted to the game. They get addicted to the attempt. And Taylor Tomlinson has a natural gift of the audience loves her. Mm-hmm. She makes them fall in love with her in such a way that no matter what happens, we still love you, Taylor. So that is very liberating for her because she can be her authentic self and feel like the audience has her back. What a wonderful quality to have as a stand-up comedian. Dave Attell is oh my God, he's a brilliant stand-up, but he's very abrasive. And you can tell he doesn't like the audience. He doesn't care what happens to you.
Yeah.
She's not that at all. She's just a lovely, sweet in spite of herself.
All right. So let's get into the actual construction of stories now. I think this is a good part to unpack that. So we've got your story from before about going to the speakers conference.
Yeah.
What are the types of things that you're going to look for or think about as you build that into a story? And I think not just a good story, but in a business setting, what are the things that we want to be paying attention to as we build these business stories so that we can have the confidence to deliver them in the room and know that they're going to hit and we're not going to be off timing, as you said before?
Generally speaking, I think it's a good rule of thumb never to make yourself the hero of the story. Because when you portray yourself as the hero, it's not credible. Great quote from George Orwell. I repeat this endlessly. The quote is, "No autobiography is to be trusted unless it reveals something disgraceful. Any man who gives a good account of himself is probably lying, since any life, when lived in from the inside, is just a series of defeats."
I'm going to have to go back and write that down because
I find incredibly accurate to my own personal experiences. Yeah, I don't think of myself as one, like anybody that really does think of themselves as one is a little bit off. What's the matter with you? You do not have a sufficient appreciation for the fact that we're all in this journey together. You're kind of like living it's like where it's all about you. However, to go back to the idea of like, how should you, when we're constructing a story, say, for example, the idea of the incredible positivity that I emerged from that. The story will not be about me. It will be better to find somebody that I remember from that experience and live it through their experience and have them be the hero. Even though some of this stuff that like my transformation and like the fact that I find it a lot less fearful to talk to the barista. Let's just cast she or he as the hero as doing this and then have them do the testimony about how they experience it. That'll be one hard and fast rule. If you're in the story, just don't make sure you're not the one who saves the day.
Yeah.
A second thing that I'll be doing is it's important to cast someone as the protagonist of the thing so that we care about them, so that we get invested in the idea that they walked in with one expectation and walked out with something else. You feel like, oh, they wanted something, they didn't get it, but they got something better. That's always a really good story. Somebody who goes in wanting something, but emerges with something much better. Or, and this is a particularly good story, something where it looks like this might be the shittiest day you've had in your life, only to discover X. I wouldn't have changed anything about that day. I needed to learn that lesson badly. So many of my favorite stories from my own experience are things where if you had told my father at 10 a.m. that would be one of the best days of his life, he would have punched you in the neck. Or that you go, I really needed to be dressed down in that moment. That was my salvation. Like, you'll often hear sometimes a really great story that an actor will tell on one of those chat shows is, I didn't get the role in Pulp Fiction, and that's why I wound up in The Matrix.
Yeah.
And Jenna Fisher, who was in The Office, she was not a successful actress. She had appeared in this and that, but she always left the casting agents with a very sweet taste in their mouths. Like, in the moment of truth, when this was a lifetime role that she was absolutely perfect for, the casting agent said, there's no question about it. This is the gal you should have.
Yeah.
And it's because she had left this long glow behind her.
Yeah.
This warm feeling. Okay, so it matters that there's somebody you care about.
Yeah.
And there should be, like, why would we care about them? Because they've got some challenge or some problem or something they can't get over or some reticence based on past experience.
Or
Like,
we see ourselves in them.
oh, that's the best, because then the analog,
Yeah.
the metaphor works great. Yeah. And there's a story that I tell for the benefit of your audience that I just love. One of the young guys in my department back in New York, we both lived in Jersey, and he had this longtime girlfriend that none of us in the department thought she was very good for him, but it was one of those on again, off again relationships. And finally she broke up with him. On the night that she broke up with him, it took her a long time to do it. And so his car got towed and impounded. Now, getting your car out of impound is a miserable experience, but compound that with the fact that if you don't get your car right away, they charge you rent by the day. So you thought it was going to be $250 to get your car out of impound. Yeah, now it's $320. So you better hot foot it down there. He was in no mood for this, right? He's already broken up and he's just an emotional wreck. And now he's got to go retrieve his car. So he was just under a black cloud. He gets down to the tow yard and walks in, and there is this young woman just getting a tongue lashing from the owner of the tow yard. The guy's just being a donkey. And just to give you a sense about what he's like, apparently this tow yard guy had towed a school bus with the kids on it. Okay. So welcome to Jersey. So he's yelling at her, but she is hearing impaired. She can't understand what he's saying. And he's just, the louder he gets, the more belligerent he gets. And this young guy who's like living under a black cloud goes, oh, to hell with this. My day's already shit. So here's the money. God, give it. Because she didn't understand that the rent had gone up. Okay, so he spots her the dough. All right, now she's free to go. But he can't go anywhere because now he doesn't have the cash for his own car. So they lock the fence on him. So he's walking to the train. And the young woman pulls up in the car that she got out. And she rolls down the window and says, hey, you need a ride? And he walks up to her like, hey, I thought you were. She goes, no, my hearing aids were in the car. I couldn't hear because I didn't have them. And she goes, actually, I'm a pretty good listener. And so the story ends with they got married. They've been married for, I guess it's about 16 years now.
That's amazing.
Okay, now that's the story, is that there's a great quote from some Zen master who said, sometimes not getting what you want is the best thing that can happen to you. And, oh, the Dalai Lama said that. But the epilogue to the story is way better, which is when they got married, they invited the tow yard owner to the wedding because that's where they met.
Amazing.
And the best man had his car towed. Because the best man was from California. So good luck finding me, man.
That's awesome. That is amazing.
So the reason I tell that story was for the epilogue, which is oftentimes, if you were there, if you had this experience, there's a lot more flavor and smell and other stuff that's happening adjacent to the story. Now, I don't yet have an epilogue for the story of that influence thing that I went to.
Yeah.
But I'm going to rack my brain for what happened afterwards, because when a hero triumphs and then triumphs again, it's not just the touchdown, it's the spike. It's the end zone spike.
So let's talk about details for those stories too.
Yeah.
Because especially when we're giving a business presentation, we don't have all the time in the world. And how do we know what is enough detail versus, hey, this guy got his car towed on the day that he broke up and he went down to the lot and lo and behold, there was a woman there and he wound up paying for her tow. She wound up giving him a ride home because that was all the money he had. And lo and behold, they got married. That's not a very compelling story. It's like, okay, that's
very
cool.
Well. But
That was
very well done, though. You got all the beats perfectly. Yeah. So let's talk about the detail and like why it matters. The metaphor that I use is, okay, body fat. Like a lot of us would like to remove some of our body fat, but body fat's actually a really good thing when it's in the right spot. This is what makes like 20-year-olds are perfect, because they got all the fat in the right spots. That's the way a story ought to be, is it's not devoid of fat. It's just that the fat's in the right places. So the curve is perfect. For example, the tow yard owner is a belligerent donkey. Just to give you an idea about what kind of dude that was, he once towed a school bus with the kids still in it. Okay, so right away, you know what kind of douche this guy is. You're like, got it. Now, it's helpful because who else would be yelling at a young hearing impaired woman? Like about these are the rules, right? He's a real tool. And so a little fat there helps you hate him more. And also, it makes the revenge 50 times more delicious.
Yeah.
When you go, oh, they towed his car. Oh my God, it's poetic justice. How perfect that he got a little taste of his own medicine. Now, but he was, after all, the catalyst of this thing. He enabled the young man to do a nice thing for a stranger, and he's still a donkey. Okay.
Yeah.
Now there's another thing about the fat in the right places, which is it was essential that you understand that this guy that went through a breakup was in no mood. Like it was a dark place for him. Everybody's had a bad breakup. And so we all understand immediately, like the emotion attached to that. But it's essential to the story that you know that the guy is coming down, not feeling particularly generous, particularly not about young women.
Yeah.
If you told him he was going to go down and meet the love of his life, he'd go, I don't like the sound of that. Bounce back relationships never work because you're going in for the wrong reasons. And so there's flavor and texture to this thing, but only so much. And how do you decide? You have to work with it. You got to workshop it. You have to write it out. And in writing it down, you'll find the right words for it. It's a great chance for you to use the right adjectives. As you can tell, I've got 19 words for the tow yard owner.
Yeah.
And it helps to explain, not just keep saying he's a jerk over and over, but have 9 different versions of it.
Yeah.
It's sauce, it's seasoning. And
can I ask you a question about that? Because there's an element of like you were talking about, you get these things down to the point that you can just come out with them. But I've always believed too that it's not so much about the specific words, unless you're telling a story where a specific word is a pun or has some specific place in there. But like, to your point, there are 100 words you could have used. It doesn't so much matter which one you used. You just know that a word needs to go here. And so then it can feel, you can just riff and it feels more natural, because if it's not exactly as you wrote it, then you're good. And that's having the command of it.
But let me go back to the words as how to leave somebody with the right impression.
Okay.
If you choose a word like effervescent instead of bubbly, or that you say swamp donkey instead of jerk, then what happens is you get credit for the vocabulary. They think of you as someone who has an astonishing library of word choices. And that broadcasts a certain level of intelligence. It's like funny people get a lot of credit for intelligence for good reason. Funny people have to make connections that are very difficult for all civilians to make. So funny people also because of timing, they seem more perceptive. They're like good dancers, good athletes. There should be no reason on earth why being a good dancer should matter in the evolutionary likelihood of our children growing up to be healthy, but it still counts. Being good at the guitar still works at parties, and
yes, it does.
To use the right word sends the signals of intelligence, care, preparation. But again, to return to something I said before, the more times you rehearse it, the more it seems like you're just making it up.
Yeah.
And that sense of spontaneity is the magic trick. That, when I listen to Patton Oswalt do an act that I know he has rehearsed the living crap out of, like he has really put in the effort, and he's done it on the road now about 60 times. So he's got it, and he knows exactly where to put the pauses. If you see it for the first time, you swear he's just telling something that happened to him. Yeah, that's the art form.
Yeah.
It just seems so spontaneous. It ain't, brother. So I do think that the word choices matter. When you look back at somebody like George Carlin was very precise about the words that he used, because often wordplay was part of the
that was his whole
part of the joke.
Yeah. 7 words you can't say on television.
Yeah, and Louis C.K. I think Chappelle and Louis C.K. are probably the best of the best when it comes to making it seem like it was spontaneously told. They have it's the point of me bringing them up specifically is that every piece of information is just what was needed, and it's not too much. So let's go back to your earlier premise about how do you construct it, and how do you know when enough is enough or not enough, and so on. And when is it gilding the lily? Tangents going off of the point, you have a very limited amount of time to get back on the road. Say, for example, I'm talking about the tow yard owner who's yelling at the woman. And to just give you a sense of who he is, he once did this with the now I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't go so far off the shore that you can't still see the shore. You got to be able to get back and not have to say, now to return 19 miles back to my point.
Everyone goes, wait, what were we talking about before?
Right. But that is a matter of practice. That's a matter of practice. That is why we'll always be drumming into my own, like people that I train. It's whatever you thought effort you were going to need to put into this, it's going to be 5 times that. And you've got to make sure that you're doing it in such a way that you can appreciate that you're getting better so that you don't run out of gas. I don't want this to be a chore. This should be enjoyable as you get better.
Do you find that this applies to the lesson of a story too? Because I'll post something on LinkedIn and I'll write and I'll realize like whatever experience I'm sharing, there's generally more than one takeaway. But if I try to capture more than one message, all of a sudden the story gets so diluted versus having it be like, okay, I'm going to pick that this is the message. Even if I think the others are important, I got to pick one and put a real exclamation on this. Otherwise, it just, talk about effervescence. It just is a wisp in the wind and it blows away and loses all its form.
You've said a mouthful. That was very well put, how you just summarized that. The lesson of advertising for the big brands is you're never going to get permission to say more than one thing. They just can't hold on to anything except whatever your point was.
Yeah.
If you have multiple things to say, God bless you. That's multiple posts. You can even use this very self-same event to describe 2 different takeaways, but do them as 2 different posts. 1 point per thing. However, even as I say, it's 1 lesson, it's 1 point, it's I'm here to tell you about the benefits of this, or I want to tell you a story about somebody who had this problem and they did this and now this is the outcome. Okay, that's the 1 point. This solves this problem. Get rid of headaches. 1,000 songs in your pocket. Solves 1 problem. Now, that does not mean, though, that you shouldn't put a little baby fat onto the explanation. And it is also why narrative works so much better than just stating the proposition, because narrative triggers a synchrony of vibration. Like we both understand emotionally what this means.
Yeah.
To return to the idea that you are not the hero of your own story, yes, good, because if you make somebody else the hero, then you're observing it just like the person you're talking to. So I was in the Boy Scouts. We went to the Grand Canyon for a field trip. It may be a cliche, but brother, it is magnificent. You can barely believe what you're looking at. It's unbelievable. I was at the bus. I'd had enough. I'd sat at the canyon rim for a while. I was watching it. It was amazing, astonishing. But when you're 14, when you're 13, there's only so much before you want to just get back to roughhousing. I was at the bus and I was waiting for other scouts to return. And I started to notice every single person that went up to the rim of the canyon looked at it and then looked at their friends. Or if they went up there by themselves, they took in this great beauty, this astonishing sight, and then they turned looking for somebody they could share it with. What does that mean? What does that indicate? There's an old Mark Twain sentiment, which is joy should be shared. You never get the real benefit of joy unless you share it. It's a truism of our species.
Yeah.
We have more fun when we do it together. Family dinners are so much more fun than eating by yourself.
That's why watching a movie in the movie theater is so much better.
Yeah, it really is. So let's think about how does that affect storytelling? It means that if you portray someone else as the hero, as the protagonist of the story, then you get to share it with somebody else and turn towards them and go, are you seeing this? Let me describe this for you. How about that? It's like when you see those hysterical videos of babies laughing. Like, yeah, I get nothing but joy out of those, but I run to the other room to show them to my wife.
Yeah.
Because it's just not enough that I should see it. I want her to experience it too.
That's what I did with your Gen Z video. And that's why my wife knows about it. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. When it comes to, okay, how do you break down any kind of story? You start with, there's a character, there's a protagonist or an antagonist, somebody who wants something and they're suffering or they're blocked from getting it through some kind of circumstances. And the guys that started South Park, they had a marvelous rule that's really simple to remember. And it's completely accurate about how to structure action. And it goes like this. You don't say this happened, then this happened. You say this happened, therefore that happened. But this happened, therefore that happened. So it's tension and release. This happened, and therefore the thing fell. But when it fell, it inadvertently triggered that, which caused this. So let's look at the tow yard story. The guy gets his car towed. But when he gets down there, he sees this woman getting berated. Therefore, he gives her the money, but gets locked out of the yard because now he can't afford his own car. But the young woman is now a ride. Therefore, they get married. Like he saved the day. She thinks of nothing but great things. So you can see how the action, it's cause and effect, but it's also barrier, challenge, nemesis, and so on. So if you can express that simple solutions aren't as much fun.
Yeah.
There should be something in the way that even with your magical solution, this happens. And that is why we now come with this. That's why we added this feature. Like you think about warfare. We thought we had the perfect bomber only to discover it had this problem. Or we thought this fighter plane. So we added this. It's every piece of weapons technology is call and response. It's like weapon system, anti-system. There's a missile. Then there's an anti-missile.
Yeah. And that's how the world progresses.
That's how the world progresses. It makes a neat little formula for the best stories don't have tidy solutions right away.
Yeah. And that's why twists are so great in stories too.
Exactly.
Oh, it's something that you did not see coming, but makes total sense.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh, yes, okay, it was right there. I just couldn't see it. And now you pull the sheet back and the reveal and, oh, wow. And I think it helps too. I can't remember if we had hit record yet or not when we were saying this earlier, but Morgan Housel, I've talked about on the show before, is one of my favorite writers. And he talks about great writing reveals something to you that you always knew but couldn't
That you already
articulate.
knew.
I don't know if I said
Yeah.
that on here before, but
It's absolutely true.
yeah.
It's
And
like,
I think
I've
that's the
always
same
felt
with
that
great
way.
storytelling. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, of course that makes sense.
There's some of the great movies that have twists like that are often more fun the second time you watch them, because now you can see all of the little seeds that they had to plant to get you there. There's a movie called No Way Out, and it was a Kevin Costner movie very early in his career about a spy in the federal government. And all through that movie, when you discover eventually who it is that was the spy, and then you go back and watch it again, you go, this is a vastly better movie than I gave it credit for the first time through.
Yeah.
This is really a nice piece of puzzle working.
Yeah.
So why I mention that is that when you can tell a story that has a twist, it's actually fun to hear it again
Yeah.
and then go, oh yeah, okay, I see why they did that.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll say is I forget what this is called, but it's somebody's gun.
Yeah, Chekhov's gun.
Chekhov's gun. That if you're going to show a gun in the first act, it better go off by the third
It
act.
has to go. Yeah.
And I think, like, when you talk about story structure, if you can seed something up front that is seemingly innocuous and then have it be the thing at the end of the story, you like, that's a thing that hits people in the face too. And they're just like, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, there's the Chekhov's gun principle. It's truly one of the great things about when you watch a movie and you don't even realize you saw it.
Yes.
Until it comes around and then you go, oh, that was really clever the way they just buried that. It was in plain sight and it was mentioned, but you didn't think much of it at the time. And then it becomes a major plot point.
Yeah. I burden my wife with that now, or bore her with that, because we'll watch a movie and then at the end I have to explain why it was such a good movie and all of the structural things that she didn't understand.
I was here, O'Brien. I saw it. Okay.
Yeah. No, but this is why that works. I'm a nerd. It's okay.
The film is so hard to produce. It's so hard to get made. It's so hard to make. They really are the kind of ultimate art form. There is no art form that you can't put into a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's performance, it's music, it's acting, it's set design, it's architecture, it's painting, it's dance, it's just everything. And when you see a really good movie, you can scarcely believe it happened. Like, that was miraculous. When you look at Godfather 1 or 2, it's miraculous that it came out the way that it came out, given all the challenges. Like, you're going, are you kidding me? I happen to love romantic comedies. Romantic comedies are my favorite genre, and so few of them are really good. But when they can do it, it's they have shelf lives that never end, because love is permanent and everybody likes to see a good love story. But a truly great love story is timing. How quickly do they get together? You can't get them together too fast or it's not believable. You can't get them together too slow or it's incredibly trying. And everybody knows what's going to happen. Boy meets girl, boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl. You know what's going to happen. The movie that can make you forget that was going to happen is the magic trick.
Yeah. Or that subverts it in a way
that
you didn't see coming.
Yeah, which, there you go with the twist again.
Yeah.
So for the benefit of your listeners, we've gone all over the map, and clearly
we've been on a few tangents on this
We've been on a few tangents, but I do have to say that it shouldn't be intimidating to anyone who wants to use storytelling as a tool in their communications in the office, because it comes in bite-sized versions and then full epics, including a business meeting that is fully choreographed and every single act has been worked out, including the Q&A. But it's a reproducible skill. And I honestly wish I'd known the power of it as a professional tool, because when an account is on the line and it's game time, they don't send in the best golfer. They send in the one who can make the sale. And making the sale is not just the merits of the product. It's trust. And it's not just trust that they can trust you to be ethical, but they trust that you have the expertise and the professionalism and the intelligence to pull it off. And you can broadcast all those things. You can set yourself up for success with sufficient preparation and respect for the art form. And going to work on it is a very smart play. Let's look at the day and age we live in. This is the age of burgeoning AI. AI can write your speech for you, but it can't get up on that stage and deliver it for you, at least not yet. And to be able to take over a business meeting. Have you ever seen a movie and some actress or actor will just absolutely steal the scene
Yeah.
they were in? They were only in it for 3.5 minutes, and that's all anybody talks about after the movie.
Yeah.
Like that young gal I was telling that story about. It's like, all of a sudden, all the bosses were like, who is this? Why have I not heard of her? Who's her boss? Because my guess is they're hiding her from me. That's the power of being a good storyteller, is to absolutely take over a meeting, no matter how small your part in it is. And no matter how senior or junior you are, and particularly when you are senior, oh my Lord, how reassuring it is for everybody that everything's under control. Like a boss who's a really good storyteller, everybody just wants to run through walls. Think about the first time Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions gave his press conference.
That was amazing.
And the story that he tells it was a story. I'm not going to tell you that we're winning a lot of games. I'm going to tell you how we're going to play this game. We're going to get knocked down. We're going to take some lumps because we're not great yet. But every time we get up, we're going to take a hunk out of you. We're going to bite this kneecap off, and then you're going to knock us down, and we're going to take the other one off, and you're going to knock us down again. And then we're going to take another hunk out of it. And you know what's going to happen? Over time, we're going to be the last one standing. Now, if you're in Detroit and you hear that, just like you said before, it feels very familiar to my experience.
Yeah.
This is not about the Lions. This is about Detroit. This is about the city of Detroit. How could you not root for this guy?
Yeah.
And then when it was working and they started to kick some ass, everybody's like, this guy's the Messiah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You just wanted him to win. The merch that they must have sold, the Detroit merch. Oh my God. And
yeah, absolutely.
It was beautiful. What a great story to be able to say about that team and about that city.
Yeah. Neal, I could talk to you and listen to your stories forever. That's why I invited you on the show. This was really fun and I think really insightful. And I was actually taking notes as we were talking. I have a bunch of things that I will put into practice for myself and with my teams. I love the concept of helping people get their first 30 to 60 seconds down.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to have yourself armed really well and to be a believer in this stuff and a practitioner of this stuff, but other people just aren't going to be. But to be able to help them, I thought that was incredibly powerful, and a bunch of other takeaways in here too. So thank you. I'm going to go have to crack a new notebook and start writing some stories down about my life. And I just hope that people really take this in and think about ways to apply it, because it can be transformative. So thank you.
Right on. Cheers.
Hey folks, one last thing before you go. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to hit subscribe so you can stay up to date with future guests. That's it. Thanks for coming. Go make the most of your business and the people in it.